On June 16, 2011, the Africa Society collaborated with the Embassy of South Africa, a group of talented and accomplished South African youth participating in the South Africa-Washington Internship Program, and a group of American students and professionals to discuss one of the many issues affecting youth in South Africa. This discussion, centered around youth action for economic freedom in our lifetime, thoroughly fleshed out the issues of youth unemployment and education in South Africa. This event was held in honor of South Africa Youth Day, a day that commemorates the commencement of the Soweto riots in 1976. Ibrahim Rasool, the ambassador of South Africa, not only welcomed each of us into his home for this event, but he provided informative insight on both youth and adults in South Africa. He opened up the event with some inspirational words pertaining to the history of the apartheid movement and the path that the fighters for freedom have paved for youth of all races. Here's what he had to say on the issue.
And all of you, welcome. I think we've had a scene setter that has both historically located us and taken the responsibility of the June 16, 1976 generation who believed in a dream without having seen it. They made the sacrifices so that you could sleep. You could say, therefore, that you are on your own. You've achieved what you've achieved because you've studied hard. That you have studied hard because your parents saved. And that you have degrees because you applied yourself. Those are not the dreams of those who were their dead bodies formed the foundation of the new South Africa. And so in a sense, we are each other's keepers. And you are the keepers of the dreams of those who made you realize your dream without having realized theirs.
His words then led to the inspiring testimonies of both South African and American youth that focus on youth empowerment. Sizwe Mpofu Welsh, a university student from South Africa, accurately summed up the required tools in order for youth to thrive and achieve economic freedom in our lifetime. Here's what Sizwe had to say about the issue.
Action means what can young people today do who aren't in government positions, who don't necessarily hold the reins of power yet, do towards pursuing that end. And I think in driving towards that, we need to characterize the current situation. He said South Africa is a cappuccino economy. We have a black base at the bottom, which is the majority, a white layer of foam on top, and a few black sprinkles above. And we need to take that economy, stir it around, and take it from a short skinny latte to a grande. And so I think in terms of those economic problems, a few thoughts on solutions, a few things that young people can do. I think a number of the speakers have already mentioned one very simple thing, and that's stay in the country. But I think more than just stay, the youth voice seems to have been lost in South Africa. There's no sense in which there's a universal platform for young people who come from diverse backgrounds and diverse political persuasions to voice their concerns. And I think it's incumbent upon us as young people to create that platform, to create that voice. And we may want to do that using the new tools that our generation has been given, using Facebook, using Twitter.
Another university student from South Africa expanded on exactly what was said by Sizwe, mentioning that youth must have interest in their own country and the politics that control it.
And far too often Africa and South Africa has been seen as a needy nation. And he said to me, it's time South Africa was seen as a nation that needed a nudge in the right direction. And the formidable basis of his argument was that far too long the youth has sat back with the ideas to change the country. And one thing that I would like to advocate for one day is that a lot of us should be actually involved in politics in our country. The numbers that have been mentioned that don't work, that are unemployed, it's not because they are who they are. They didn't choose where they are. Poverty we are born to, but we don't choose to die poor.
There was then a transition in the event. The next segment focused on an adult perspective of youth involvement in economic freedom. The first of these speakers was Rashida Shah, the Commissioner of Gender Equality in South Africa.
When we speak about South Africa's oppression, it was race and gender oppression. For example, women were not allowed to enter university. And so for the younger generation of women that are now given the opportunity, it's important that we not carry just the issue around making a success, but making a success in terms of women's and gender equality. And I find that women, they attain leadership to a certain level. For example, in the science field, they find that women do much better than men. But if you look at the statistics, there's fewer women in leadership positions than men. And the challenge that I have for the women that are here is to not, as my daughter often says, not dumb yourself down. It's important for women that are here that know that they have a responsibility to break the stereotypes about women, in particularly women in the professional field.
As shown, her words reflect on the women's struggle in South Africa. Women must move forward despite all of the barriers that prevent them from doing so. Also, youth are particularly responsible for this advancement, for they will one day be enforcing policies that will promote women's advancement in the country. Next, a selection of American professionals spoke about their experiences in the labor force as well as their own personal lives. The first of these speakers is Brian Brooks, an individual who once interned at the White House as a young man. He spoke about his experiences there and all that he has learned thus far.
Real briefly about myself, I came to Washington, D.C. and interned in the White House. And I thought, wow, White House internship, I got it made. And what I learned early on in my career is, after a lot of futile attempts to say, hey, I have the White House internship, where's my job? No one's going to give you a job. Right? You have to go out and make your own opportunity. And I can tell you, without even knowing these folks here, we've all made our own opportunities.
Next, Kent Wren spoke about his experiences in the labor force while providing the audience with some comedic words. He emphasized the fact that the country of South Africa not only belongs to adults, but it belongs to the youth as well. Here's what Mr. Wren had to say.
John Adams, who also lived in my neighborhood in Boston, he said, I study law and politics so that my sons can study art and architecture. And you are the folks who are somewhere in that transition, I guess. I would submit you are not young South Africans. You are South Africans. It's yours. The campaign, I worked on the Obama campaign in 08, and that 18 to 24 demographic made the difference for Obama.
Next, the Africa Society, as an organization that seeks to develop education about Africa in the United States, brought two representatives to speak about their experiences in the labor force as well. First, Jomo Bellard of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation gave his insight on youth, focusing on experiences in both the United States and Africa.
You want to know what a country believes in, or a corporation, or a person, you look at their budget. And so thank you to South Africa for inviting students to have this type of dialogue. What I did pick up, though, are the similarities. We think that people are so different. We're actually not. The one thing that we don't do is we just don't engage. We don't talk. What I liked about South Africa was the conflicts and things that were taking place. People dialogue about it. What you say counts. Like, you actually can change the world. When I was young, I actually believed that I could. So know that. Embrace that.
Next, David gave great insight on how youth have the power to change the government under which they live.
But because your country is so young, you guys have an opportunity to be two different types of people. You can be like Martin Luther King was here, as a public citizen when you go home and make an impact in your country like that. Or you can get and be active in your government and change your country like Jack Kennedy did and Bobby Kennedy in this country did. So I urge you to be to go back when you go back home to find a way to serve your country.
As the forum came to a close, Crystal Mcintyre, a university student from South Africa, tie together the words of each speaker and participant into a coherent and well thought out speech about economic freedom in our lifetime.
When we talk about economic freedom, CISWE defined it as meeting the needs of our population. And often we would define that by looking at economic growth. But we all know in South Africa, the inequality is very high. We have the second worst Gini coefficient in the world. So GDP is not a very good indicator of economic growth and therefore economic freedom. So we need to consider all these other aspects, a lot of social aspects. And what we're doing here today, education, is exactly one of them.